Welcome to the world of Campy Creatures. You're a mad scientist looking to capture as many mortals as you can get your hands on. With an array of Campy Creatures at your disposal, you will be gathering these mortals for your dastardly experiments. The objective of the game is to score as many points as possible across 3 rounds of play. Players will utilize the creature cards in their hand to capture mortals on the field. The player with the most points at the end of 3 rounds is the winner. Now that you know what you're getting into, let's jump into the setup. Place the board in an area accessible by all participating mad scientists. Each player then selects a color and takes a clash marker, eye token, and hand of Campy Creature cards of the same color. To decide who goes first, find out which player most recently watched a creature feature. That player takes their clash marker and moves it to the top of the clashometer. Move clockwise starting from the first player and have each player place their own clash marker below the previous player's. Eye tokens for all players start at 0 points on the board. If this is your first time playing, remove all Demogorgon cards from the creature decks. Next, we set up the Mortal deck. Mortal types are differentiated by the icon in the top right corner of the Mortal card. During initial setup, keep Mortals separated by their types. First, take all base Mortal cards, denoted by the crossbow symbol. These cards are always included in the Mortal deck, regardless of player count. Depending on the total number of players, add cards from the different sets to your deck of base Mortal cards. Next, take the Final Act location cards and shuffle them. Then deal 1 randomly face down on the slot labeled Locations on the board. Then deal assistant cards directly on top of that, also face down. The number of assistant cards dealt is dependent on the number of players. Next, take the Locations cards, shuffle them, and place 1 face down on top of that same pile. Deal the same number of assistants as the last time on top of the pile again, face down once more. Finally, deal 1 last location card, this time face up. This location card will be used in the first round. To add even more spooky locations to explore, check out the first expansion of Campy Creatures. Now let's take some time to discuss the creature cards. Creatures are your loyal minions, waiting on your command to capture unsuspecting mortals. All players start with the same creatures of strength 0 through 8. With that in mind, it's important to pay attention to which creatures your fellow mad scientists are playing and counterplay accordingly. Each creature can be broken down into 3 primary components. Strength is the number at the top of each creature card and denotes the strength of said creature. This number determines the order in which capturing takes place each turn. Next is name and ability. Each creature has a unique ability that helps you or hinders your opponents. Last is activation phase. Any red dots in the bottom left corner of the creature card denote when the creature ability triggers. Each of these components will be explained in greater detail during the gameplay overview. Now let's take a closer look at Mortal cards. Total points are scored based on the points assigned to each Mortal. Mortals vary in point value and effect, so pay attention when prioritizing which Mortal you want to capture. There are many different kinds of Mortals to familiarize yourself with before you go hunting. One unique Mortal to pay close attention to is the Assistant. They score at the end of every round, but, unlike other mortals, they are kept between rounds by the player who possesses them. The more assistants you capture, the more valuable they each become. Also note, if they are discarded or left uncaptured at the end of the round, they are returned to the box and do not return to play. If you're looking to spice things up, additional creatures and mortals can be added through the Campy Creatures first expansion. Now let's talk about the clashometer. The clashometer serves as a tiebreaker throughout the game. A common example of a tie occurs when it's time to claim mortals. When 2 or more players play creatures of equal strength, a clash takes place. When a clash occurs, the player higher on the clashometer gets priority. This means claiming a mortal, activating a creature ability, and so on, before the other tied player. The tied player who lost the clash would subsequently go directly after the winner of the clash. At the end of the round after mortals have been collected, regardless of the number of clashes that took place, the player that first claimed a mortal and participated in a clash that round moves to the bottom of the clashometer. Now that the game is set up and we've familiarized ourselves with the different components, we're ready to ensnare some mortals. To initiate a round, flip cards over from the top of the mortal deck equal to the number of players. Next, players will choose a creature card from their hand and place it face down. After all players have chosen and placed their creature cards face down, reveal all creature cards simultaneously. Any creature card with a red dot in the bottom left corner immediately activates their ability. If there are multiple creatures with the red dot, resolve them in order of strength, highest to lowest. In this case, the vampire's effect is to negate the ability of the creature to their left. After all abilities have been resolved, the player with the creature of the highest strength chooses a mortal to take from the board. Next is the player with the creature of the second highest strength, and so on. Creatures marked with a double red dot symbol in the bottom left corner resolve their abilities immediately after they've captured a mortal. Normally, the swamp creature would have been able to give the mortal they captured to another player. However, since the vampire negated their ability, they will not be able to use their own ability and have to keep the mortal they captured for themselves. All mortals that have been captured and creatures that have been played or discarded remain face up in 2 separate piles. This information is openly available to all players. The next turn begins by flipping over the next set of mortal cards. Continue playing turns until 1 mortal remains in the deck. When only 1 mortal remains, the round is over. If the last mortal is an assistant, discard it and place it back in the box. Players then total up the total number of location icons they collected across all mortals. The player with the most total location icons wins the location card and its reward. If there is a tie, use the Clashometer to decide the winner. Next, players total up all points earned from mortal cards. Don't forget to add points if the beast is still in possession as well. After all players have finished tallying points, move the eye tokens to the corresponding score on the board. To set up for the next round, collect all mortal cards from players aside from assistants, which are kept by players who captured them. Add the next set of assistant cards to the mortal deck and shuffle, then reveal the next location. Once all Campy Creatures have been recollected into each player's hand, it's time to start the next round. After the third round, better known as the final act, has ended, the player with the most total points is the winner. Per usual, a tie in points is broken by the Clashometer. And that's Campy Creatures. Put on your lab coat and get ready to capture some mortals. Just make sure you don't let your fellow scientists beat you to the most valuable ones. Additional rules, details on mortals and creatures, and frequently asked questions can be found in the rulebook.